For decades, Jay Leno stood in front of millions of Americans night after night, smiling beneath the bright studio lights, cracking jokes, and delivering monologues that defined late-night television. But behind that charming grin and quick wit, behind the denim shirts and the cars that filled his famous garage, there was a truth he never fully shared, a truth that at 75, he finally confessed. "She was the love of my life," he said, his voice soft, his usually bright eyes dimmed with reflection. For years, rumors swirled around Jay Leno's private world, about why he never had children, why he seemed to live such a simple, disciplined life despite his immense wealth, and about the one woman who quietly stood beside him through every triumph and tragedy, his beloved wife, Mavis Leno. Now, as time slows and memories resurface, Jay Leno has begun to open up about his past, his regrets, and the love story that endured the storms of fame, pain, and unspoken sacrifice. This is the untold story of the man who made the world laugh but often cried when the cameras stopped, the man whose greatest act wasn't on stage, but in how he loved. Welcome to Hollywood Vault 8 AM, where we uncover the hidden truths behind the lives of the stars you thought you knew. Before he became the face of The Tonight Show, James Douglas Muir Leno was just a working-class kid from Andover, Massachusetts, with a dream bigger than his reality. Born on April 28, 1950, to a Scottish mother and an Italian father, Jay Leno grew up with humor as a shield against struggle. His father, Angelo Leno, was a hard-working insurance salesman, his mother, Catherine, a homemaker who'd immigrated from Scotland. Their home was filled with warmth but also with strict discipline. Jay, always the class clown, learned early on that laughter could make people forget their worries, even if just for a moment. But that sense of humor came from somewhere deeper, a desire to make people happy because he knew what sadness felt like. He wasn't the popular kid or the best-looking. He was awkward, hard-working, and endlessly determined. In his early days, he worked odd jobs, performed at small clubs, and often slept in his car just to keep pursuing stand-up. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't party. People thought it was strange, but Jay always said, when you grow up with very little, you learn to protect what matters. What no one realized then was that he wasn't just protecting his career, he was protecting his heart. In the mid-1970s, after a few years on the comedy circuit, Jay Leno met Mavis Nicholson, the woman who would change his life forever. She was a writer, feminist, and producer, sharp, independent, and far from the type of person one might expect a rising comedian to fall for. But when their paths crossed at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, something clicked. Mavis later recalled that she wasn't even looking for love, in fact, she had always said she never wanted to get married. She admired Lily Tomlin, she admired independence, and she didn't believe in the traditional roles women were often boxed into. But when she met Jay, she saw something different, a man who didn't need to dominate, didn't try to impress, didn't want to change her. He simply made her laugh, and he made her feel safe. For Jay, it was immediate. "I knew she was the one," he would later say. "She was funny, she was smart, and she didn't care about any of the Hollywood nonsense." They married in 1980, quietly, without glitz or paparazzi, and for over 4 decades, they remained one of Hollywood's most stable, low-profile couples, a rarity in an industry built on chaos. What many don't know is that Jay Leno and Mavis made one of the most unusual choices for a Hollywood marriage. They decided early on not to have children. It wasn't out of coldness or ambition, it was a deeply personal decision. Mavis, who had spent years working in feminist activism and producing projects that uplifted women, said she never wanted to raise a child in a world that expected women to sacrifice their own dreams. And Jay respected that completely. In fact, he said that his greatest joy was simply coming home to her after work, knowing that no matter how loud the world was, their home was quiet, grounded, and full of laughter. "We didn't need kids," he said. "We had each other." Over the years, fans often speculated about their childless marriage, creating rumors about unhappiness or secret family issues. But the truth was simpler, they were just two people who loved each other deeply and lived exactly the life they wanted. Through the height of his fame, Jay Leno remained remarkably grounded. When The Tonight Show became his stage in 1992, he turned into a household name, going head-to-head with David Letterman and winning the hearts of millions. Yet, while the world saw a confident host with perfect timing, Mavis saw a man who still carried his working-class roots, who saved every penny, who drove to work in old cars even after he became a multimillionaire. He was famously frugal. He never touched his NBC salary, living only off his stand-up income. Why? Because he'd seen his father struggle. He wanted to be ready if the laughter ever stopped. Mavis was his balance. She handled fame quietly, avoiding interviews, attending charity events with him only when necessary, and continuing her humanitarian work with organizations like Feminist Majority Foundation, where she fought against gender apartheid in Afghanistan and became a global advocate for women's rights. While others chased fame, Mavis Leno chased change. And through it all, Jay adored her for it. "She's my hero," he often said. "She does something that matters." But as the years went by, tragedy struck, not in the form of scandal or betrayal, but through pain and illness. In 2022, the world was stunned when news broke that Jay Leno had been hospitalized after a horrific garage fire that left him with severe burns to his face and hands. The man known for his calm composure and endless energy suddenly found himself fighting for recovery. And through every surgery, every moment of pain, Mavis was there, holding his hand, refusing to leave his side. Just months later, Jay suffered another serious accident, a motorcycle crash that broke multiple bones. Fans couldn't believe it. Was fate trying to take away one of Hollywood's hardest working men? When asked about it later, Jay just smiled and said, "You play the hand you're dealt." But insiders say what really kept him alive was Mavis, her strength, her love, her refusal to let him give up. Behind closed doors, however, something even harder was unfolding. In 2023, Jay quietly filed for conservatorship of his wife Mavis, revealing that she was battling a serious cognitive illness, a heartbreaking turn that few saw coming. The woman who had once been the guiding force in his life, who had helped him through decades of fame, was now fading in memory. Sources close to the couple described Jay Leno as absolutely devoted, spending every moment caring for her, protecting her privacy, and keeping her dignity intact. For someone who spent 50 years making others laugh, this was his most serious and silent role yet, that of a caregiver. In interviews, when asked about his marriage, Jay doesn't hide his emotion. "She's the love of my life," he says. "I don't regret a single day. If I had to do it all over again, I'd marry her again tomorrow." The confession stopped millions in their tracks. After decades of being known for jokes, cars, and television rivalries, here was Jay Leno, stripped of performance, speaking purely from the heart. His entire life, he had been misunderstood by many. Some thought him emotionally distant, some called him too disciplined, even robotic. But those who knew him well always said he had one soft spot, Mavis. She was his compass, his reason to come home, his quiet peace in a noisy world. In a way, their love story was the opposite of Hollywood's. It wasn't built on spectacle, it was built on loyalty, on choosing each other every single day, even when life became hard. Now, at 75, Jay Leno spends his time balancing his comedy, his beloved car collection, and caring for Mavis. He still performs stand-up regularly, not because he needs the money, but because, as he says, laughter keeps you alive. His garage, filled with hundreds of rare and classic vehicles, has become more than just a museum of machines, it's his place of reflection. Friends say that when he walks among the cars, he talks about the past, about how every car reminds him of a moment, a show, or a trip he took with Mavis. To outsiders, his life might seem lonely now, but to Jay Leno, it's full of memories, love, and purpose. It's rare to see a Hollywood love story last more than a few years, but Jay and Mavis Leno have been married for over 40. They've lived through fame, fortune, injury, and illness, yet their bond remains unbroken. When asked the secret to his marriage, Jay once said, "Marry your conscience. Marry someone who makes you a better person." And that's exactly what he did. He may have been the king of late-night TV, but she was the queen of his heart. As he looks back on his career, from hosting The Tonight Show to his second act with Jay Leno's Garage, the laughter, the rivalry with David Letterman, the endless car jokes, all fade compared to the quiet truth he holds onto. That love is what made it all worthwhile. In the end, Jay Leno's confession isn't scandalous or shocking. It's simple and human. It's a reminder that even the biggest stars are still just people looking for someone to hold onto when the lights go out. For millions who grew up watching him on TV, this moment feels like seeing the man behind the curtain, vulnerable, real, and deeply human. And as Jay Leno continues to navigate the final chapters of his life, his story stands as a powerful testament to what truly matters. Not fame, not money, not the cars or the ratings, but love, loyalty, and laughter that lasts. This is Hollywood Vault 8 AM, bringing you the real stories behind the headlines, the love, the pain, and the humanity behind the legends. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones told on stage, but the ones lived in silence.